I'm suffering from domestic violence from my husband. My sister-in-law declared this upon her arrival at our house, where she has now been staying for 3 months. She doesn't lift a finger to help with the housework and spends her days idling away. Additionally, it pains me to see my husband prioritize her over our own daughter. When I asked her to take on some of the housework, I was told, if you're unhappy, then leave, which I found unacceptable. The moment I protested, saying, "This house is under my father's name," I felt a sharp pain on my face. I had never imagined I would be hit. If that's what you want, then I will leave. My name is Katie. I am 34 years old and work as an office employee. I currently live in a condominium in the Northeast region with my husband David, who is also an office employee, and our daughter Nicole, who is in her first year of elementary school. This condominium is under my father's name because David found the contract procedures too bothersome and left it to me. I don't have any major complaints about life. However, it is certainly hard to juggle work, housework, and childcare all by myself, and my days fly by. After work, I prepare dinner for the whole family, do the laundry, and on days Nicole has piano lessons, I also handle the transportation. My days are incredibly busy, and I hardly have any time to rest. But David isn't very cooperative with housework or childcare. I have the same level of dissatisfaction many wives feel, but since we live apart, there are no major issues with my in-laws, and my parents-in-law are understanding and respectable people. Aside from the business, my daily life was very peaceful until one day, our home's intercom suddenly rang. Yes, who is it? When I went outside, there was David's sister, Stacy. Stacy, do you need something? I asked her, and she looked a bit troubled and asked, "Is my brother here?" "Yes, he is. Please come inside." I invited Stacy inside, and David asked, "Stacy, what's wrong? Why are you here all of a sudden?" Stacy suddenly burst into tears and revealed, "Actually, I've run away from John." "What do you mean you've run away?" John is Stacy's husband. They were supposed to be living in the Southwest region, having married about a year ago. To tell you the truth, John started being violent towards me right after we got married. "Violent?" David exclaimed in shock. I was also surprised by this revelation. I had met John only once at their wedding, and he seemed kind and sincere at the time. I couldn't believe he would be someone who could inflict violence on his spouse. "Stacy, is that true? You're saying John has been violent towards you?" "It's true. He was a warm person before we got married. But after the wedding, his personality changed, and he started being violent. I endured it for a year, but the situation didn't improve at all. I was always being hit. I've reached my limit, so I ran away from John. I'm considering divorcing him. However, I'm having trouble finding a place to live until the divorce is finalized. So, could I stay here for a while?" As Stacy spoke with tears in her voice, my husband said, "But of course, that's fine. Katie, that's okay with you, right?" "Yes, of course. You've really had a tough time." I felt sympathy for Stacy's experience and responded in this way. "By the way, have you talked to your parents about the violence and the divorce?" When I asked, Stacy answered, "I haven't told my parents yet. I don't want to worry them. I'll tell them once the divorce is finalized, so please keep it a secret from everyone else until then." Thus, our sister-in-law began living with us, and that was the beginning of an unexpected turmoil. The addition of another person to live with us increased the amount of meal preparation and laundry, as well as our living expenses. Stacy had been dedicated to her family life and didn't have a regular income, so contributing to the household financially wasn't an option. At the very least, we hoped she would help with housework, shopping, and meal preparation while we were at work. But we didn't receive such help, and she just spent her days idly at home. At first, considering the situation of being a victim of domestic violence, we didn't say anything, but after a month, we inevitably started to feel discontent. One evening, I asked Stacy, "Stacy, have the divorce negotiations with John not finished yet?" She replied, "Actually, John isn't agreeing, and there are some issues." "I see. but you'll need to be independent and start looking for a job and a new place to live soon, right? You can't stay here forever. Do you want me out of here as soon as possible? Not at all. However, I was hoping you could help out with some house chores while you're staying here. Why should I have to do such work? I'm emotionally hurt from various issues. Please leave me alone. This conversation continued, and the next day, I was confronted by my husband. Katie, it seems you told Stacy to leave the house soon. I said nothing of the sort. I only advised her to start looking for a new job and place to live, considering her future. Moreover, with an additional person in the house, cooking and laundry require more time and effort, so I was hoping she could help out. Could you say something as well? Or perhaps you could take over driving Nicole to her piano lessons? Why should I do that? I have work, so do I. But taking Nicole to her piano lessons has always been your job. Anyway, don't bully Stacy. I'm tired and going to sleep, David said and left the room. Afterwards, Nicole came to me, looking worried. Mom, should I quit piano? Why would you say that all of a sudden? You always seem to enjoy it. Yeah, but it's a lot of trouble, right? I don't want to see Mom and Dad fighting over my lessons. I reassured her, don't worry, you can continue with piano, but inside, I wished my husband would make our daughter feel less concerned. When we first met David and Stacy's parents, they mentioned we both worked and couldn't spend much time with our children. But they played together a lot and were closer than most siblings. However, I think it's too much if his sister's excessive care makes our daughter consider giving up her hobbies. 2 months after Stacy came to our house, during dinner, David announced, I'm going shopping with Stacy tomorrow. When I reminded him, but tomorrow is Nicole's school festival, he replied, can't help it. Stacy insists on going shopping tomorrow. There's a limited edition cosmetic release tomorrow. I absolutely must have it, so we're going, Stacy said. Why are Stacy's wishes prioritized over Nicole's schedule? Who is more important, your daughter or your sister? You're going to Nicole's event, aren't you? You can take photos or videos. That should be enough. Nicole, witnessing this exchange, bluntly asked, how long will Aunt Stacy stay here? Upon hearing this, Stacy started crying, saying, everyone wants me out. David scolded, and Stacy is going through a tough time. It's terrible to say such things. Apologize. Frightened, Nicole softly said, sorry. But after this, she seemed to lose her usual brightness, either due to changing her view on attending school events with her father or being scared by his harsh scolding. Feeling that the situation couldn't continue, I noticed it had been about 2 months without any progress on Stacy's divorce. What exactly was happening? I decided to investigate. On a Saturday, 3 months after Stacy started staying with us, she spent the day lying around without looking for a job or a new place to live. I approached her. I'm about to start preparing dinner. Would you like to help, Stacy? Nicole will too. Nicole happily replied, yes, but Stacy refused, asking, why do I have to do that? Showing no intention to move. I was really frustrated. As long as you're here, you should help with something. Come on, I said, trying to pull her into the kitchen, but she resisted, and it turned into a minor scuffle. Hearing the noise, David rushed in. Stacy immediately complained, David, Katie is bullying me. Hearing this, my husband exploded in anger. Katie, what are you doing? Don't you feel sorry for Stacy? If you keep ostracizing her, that's it. Leave this house immediately. But this house is under my father's name, I protested. The moment those words left my mouth, I felt an intense pain on my cheek. Really? Was I actually hit? And with a fist? I couldn't believe it. This had never happened before. Nicole, who was nearby and witnessed me being hit, let out a worried mom. I could taste metal in my mouth. It seemed I had split my lip from the blow. Feeling that taste, my resentment towards David and Stacy only grew. I can't bear it anymore. That's my line. Living with you, who prioritizes your sister over your own daughter, is impossible. I raised my voice. That's why I said you should leave, David scoffed. Stacy also laughed. Yeah, Even if this house belongs to your father, don't act so high and mighty about it. Realizing my words were falling on deaf ears, I declared, fine, we'll leave. But you two will regret this decision, and left the house with Nicole. We then headed to my parents' house in the neighboring state. After explaining the situation to them, they were furious, and my father immediately canceled the condominium contract. This stripped those two of their right to continue living there. When my parents offered to discuss things with David, I said, I'll handle it myself. I haven't been inactive these past 3 months, and asked only for them to take care of Nicole. The next day, I went to the hospital, received a medical report for the assault, and accompanied by a lawyer and another man, we headed to the apartment where David and Stacy lived. I had the lawyer and the man hide momentarily while I pressed the intercom myself. Stacy answered, and I was shocked to see the room in disarray after just a short period. Why have you come back? Stacy asked arrogantly. Why are you two still here? This apartment's contract was terminated 2 days ago, I replied. What? Hearing Stacy's response, David appeared. I explained the situation to my father, and the apartment's contract was immediately canceled. You must vacate today, or the landlord will sue you for illegal occupancy. I suggest you pack quickly. I continued, and David was visibly shaken. Then, calling the hidden lawyer, I told David, we will be divorcing. This gentleman is my lawyer, and all the necessary preparations are complete. All you need to do is sign this divorce paper. Handing him the divorce paper, David, stunned, asked, Divorce? Why are you surprised? Did you think divorce was never an option? I confidently entered the room and retrieved the surveillance equipment I had installed beforehand. These surveillance cameras have recorded not only your negligence towards Nicole and me and Stacy's laziness, but also the violence against me. Surveillance cameras? When were those installed? David questioned. About a month ago, when I started considering divorce. I gathered information online and was advised by the lawyer that video evidence would be advantageous for a compensation claim. Here is the medical report for the assault. With this evidence, I expect a significant compensation. Compensation? David exclaimed, and Stacy protested. It's awful to demand compensation after everything my brother has done for me. To her, I said, Stacy, you should be more worried about your own situation. Please come out, addressing the man who accompanied me. The moment Stacy saw him, she lost color in her face. John. The man who appeared was Stacy's spouse, John. He began to vehemently address her. Why are you talking about domestic violence? You were the one who committed adultery. Anyway, you need to pay compensation. But I'm a housewife. I can't. Stacy's tears in response to John's accusation of adultery and David's inability to hide his shock prompted me to explain. The story about Stacy escaping from John due to domestic violence is made up. In reality, Stacy had an affair, which led John to propose divorce and demand a significant amount of compensation. She fled here to avoid paying. Was that really the case? David was shocked. I suspected something was off. It's been more than 2 months with no progress on the divorce, and it was strange she asked her brother for help from the start. So, I hired a detective for about a month to investigate. The affair was uncovered, and to my surprise, the person involved is also married. An adulterous relationship from both sides. Unthinkable. You couldn't possibly discuss such a matter with your respectable parents. They'd be furious and wouldn't tolerate such a lazy lifestyle as you've had here. Well, I've already contacted your parents about Stacy's divorce and mine and David's. Upon hearing this, Stacy, with a trembling voice, was horrified. Did you really tell my parents about this? Yes, I did what was necessary. Your father and mother, as expected, were furious and ordered, come back home immediately. So, it would be wise for both of you to pack your belongings and return home as soon as possible, I replied. However, Stacy weakly protested, I should go back to him, to your affair partner. Even though he's already married, do you really think he would welcome you? Moreover, we've already informed your affair partner about your current situation through a lawyer. You lied to him, claiming you were unmarried. He was quite shocked to learn you were actually married, I continued. At that moment, this is a letter from your affair partner. The lawyer quietly handed over an envelope. After reading the contents, Stacy was visibly devastated and collapsed. The letter revealed, I cannot forgive you for lying about being unmarried when I had been honest about being married. I considered it just a fling, and my wife is most important to me. This is the end for us. Please do not contact me anymore. Was Stacy abandoned? Well, it's none of my concern. Now, sign the divorce papers. Urging the stunned David, he pleaded, I was wrong. I'll treasure you and Nicole more. Please don't divorce me. However, I replied, I don't want a father who values his sister over his daughter. Let's proceed with the divorce, I firmly stated. And so, the divorce with David was finalized. Naturally, I demanded appropriate compensation. Though he must work harder now, I have no intention of forgiving him and told him to persevere. Meanwhile, Stacy also divorced John and started working at a company introduced by her father-in-law to pay the compensation. Given her past lifestyle of barely doing any housework and relaxing at home, it's questionable how well she'll adapt to working in society and handle the stress from the challenges she'll face at work. Indeed, she's been struggling with harsh criticism at work but is trying her best through tears. My in-laws apologized deeply for their past parenting methods, promising to re-educate their children. Following their declaration, David and Stacy returned to live with their strict parents, engaging in household chores and farm work even on weekends, under stringent guidance. While I slightly sympathize with their being worked hard even on days off, considering their previous easy living, this hardship might be a necessary period of adjustment. Meanwhile, Nicole and I moved to a new apartment for a fresh start, enjoying a very happy life together. Nicole doesn't seem to be significantly affected by her father's absence, likely having distanced herself emotionally due to his behavior. Despite David's request to see Nicole, I have no intention of agreeing. Nicole continues her piano practice, preparing for an upcoming recital, and I'm content seeing her diligent in school and her hobbies, hoping she leads a joyful and fulfilling life every day. My name is Ashley, and I am a 30-year-old single woman. I established my own company towards the end of my 20s and have been serving as its de facto CEO. Primarily involved in internet-related business. I don't employ any staff and manage all aspects of the business myself. It's challenging, but I lead a very fulfilling life. I had been interested in internet business since my university days, building up my current foundation gradually, almost like a part-time job. In university, I was able to live without engaging in strenuous work, and I'm truly grateful to my parents, who supported my tuition and living expenses. After graduation, my side income was a great help in supporting my livelihood, even while working as a salaried employee. Eventually, as my business progressed smoothly and my side income exceeded my main income, I chose to pursue it as my full-time profession. Internet business doesn't depend on location, so I can work even in rural areas, not just in big cities. Therefore, I decided to return to my hometown, where my elderly parents live. However, my family home is a small apartment. I've always valued my personal time, so I went to consult with a family I've known since childhood. But as a result of this consultation, I got involved in an unexpected person's plan and encountered unbelievable troubles. I'm the type to act on intuition. Right after deciding to return to my hometown, I started the process to terminate my lease in New York the following month. Although I hadn't decided on a new place in my hometown yet, I proceeded with the termination, thinking I could temporarily return to my family home or stay in a hotel in the worst case, and started looking for a new house. As expected, there were plenty of immediately available properties and business hotels. I was impressed by the abundance of options in the countryside, but it was hard to find the property I wanted. I was looking for a property with separate rooms for hobbies, sleeping, and work. This was a wish I definitely wanted to fulfill. However, such rental properties were rare in this area, and I didn't sign a contract that day, deciding to spend the night in a hotel I had booked. That night, I suddenly thought of specific people. This story is about a family that used to live next to us. The daughter of that house was in the same grade as me. Originally, she had a father, but he passed away at a young age due to illness, and her mother supported the family by running a bar. My parents were busy, and it was common for me to be left in their care. It wasn't that I was reluctantly left there. Both families agreed on this arrangement, which led to such a situation. Instead of after-school care, I spent time at the bar with her daughter, doing homework and enjoying singing and shouting at karaoke until the bar opened. I remember we got along very well back then. However, when I was in the third year of junior high, they moved away and we lost contact since then. Now that I'm back in my hometown, I wondered if that bar still existed. Following my intuition, I headed there and found a woman in her 60s busily preparing for opening inside. There was still time before opening, so I was about to leave when the woman noticed me and came out. "Ashley, is that you?" she said with the same smile as before. Inside, I found Jessica, my former classmate, wiping tables. Her mother left to go shopping, leaving just Jessica and me. We fell into silence, not knowing what to talk about. While I was frantically searching for a topic in my head, she started talking first. But her words contained something surprising, and I was at a loss for words. "By the way, Ashley, are you still enchanting men one after another?" I couldn't understand what she was talking about at all. Triggered by that remark, Jessica started hurling accusations at me. She had misunderstood that I was dating many men because I attracted plenty of attentions from the boys during junior high. But in reality, I was only confessed to by a few boys, and I had no interest in romance, rejecting their advances. Was she not amused by this? Hearing this, my friend badmouthed me for no reason, spreading baseless rumors that my good grades were due to cheating and that I was dating delinquents. This gradually angered me, and I retorted, "That's all lies, right? And why do we need to bring up only the bad things from junior high?" At that, her expression turned from bright to serious, and she glared at me. "It's always been a pain to get along with you. We only hung out because our parents were close, but I never actually liked you. In fact, I hated you," she said casually. At that moment, the bell at the entrance rang, and we both turned our attention in that direction. It seemed like Jessica's mother had returned from shopping, carrying heavy grocery bags. In front of her mother, Jessica regained her smile and continued to help. Later, her mother suddenly asked about my reasons for returning to my hometown, and I shared my struggle to find a suitable residence. Then, Jessica's mother suggested a beautiful new apartment near the station. The real estate agency I visited did not handle this property, but upon researching online, I found it perfectly matched my criteria. It was attractive, but there was one problem. It was that this property had been recommended by a friend. She had said she saw a vacancy while walking in front of the station, but I still harbored some doubts, especially since this friend had previously spoken ill of me in her mother's absence, openly showing disdain, making it hard for me to believe such advice. I thought no one would go out of their way to find a place for someone they disliked. However, I couldn't pass up a good apartment and visited the real estate agency the next day, promptly finalizing the contract. Living there turned out to be very comfortable, and there were no troubles during the contract signing. However, unbeknownst to me at the time, I had already fallen into my friend's trap. One day, 6 months later, the intercom rang. Checking through the camera, I saw it was the manager of the apartment I was renting. Wondering what had happened, I opened the door, and the manager, presenting some documents, notified me, "You haven't paid rent for 3 months. Based on the contract, you must vacate immediately." Shocked, I was in a state of disbelief. Feeling something was amiss, I counted, "That's impossible. My rent is automatically withdrawn every month." The manager looked surprised and momentarily lost for words. I confirmed my rent payments through online banking, showing that the payments were being withdrawn by the management company each month. Confronted with this evidence, the manager quickly left, saying, "I will check on this immediately." After a while, he returned with someone who appeared to be from the company's upper management and received an apology for the transmission error. Initially reluctant to reveal the details, the manager began to speak when I insisted on my right to know. It turned out a female staff member responsible for administration had made a false report and became uncontactable after leaving work early that day. She had been handling my rent payments and falsely reported to the company that I had not paid despite my payments. Learning that this staff member was Jessica, my anger surged. I suspected that she had introduced me to this apartment to set a trap from the beginning. I thought she was working at her mother's bar, but the real issue was where my money had gone and why this situation was reported at this time. Apparently, the misuse of rent had been happening since I moved in, but there were records of correct payments for the first 3 months. This led to the discovery that rent for the 4th to 6th months had not been paid. Despite the reality, there were records of attempts to collect the rent via visits, mail, and phone calls, but these were reported as having no response. Therefore, based on the contract, the manager explained that they had no choice but to take measures for forced eviction. However, the manager apologized, stating that he had entrusted financial management to the administrative staff and had responded without thorough verification, leading to this situation. Still, my anger towards Jessica did not subside. Despite the fact that she had disliked me from before, this was an excessive act. Embezzlement is a serious crime. I couldn't easily forgive a friend who committed such a despicable act and decided she must face proper consequences for her wrongdoing. That evening, I visited the bar again. It was early on a weekday, so there were no customers yet. When I entered, her mother welcomed me warmly, and Jessica also behaved cheerfully. The moment I sat down, I asked her with a bright smile, "Don't you think you should repay the embezzled money to the company?" Upon hearing this, her mother looked confused, a question mark hovering over her head. But Jessica was shocked, a look of tension crossing her face. Sensing the tension in the air, her mother changed the sign from open to closed. Jessica's mom. I just want to talk to Jessica for a bit. I won't be a bother. So you can keep the shop open, I said, but her mother shook her head. You mentioned embezzlement, right? That's a crime. I think I, as a mother, need to know, she argued, and we continued the discussion there. When I again conveyed the fact of embezzlement to Jessica, she denied it. I absolutely didn't do such a thing. It's completely unfounded. She claimed her unreachability was not due to fleeing but merely an oversight. But such excuses were not acceptable in reality. Normally, in such a situation, there would be some kind of contact with the company or home, right? I pointed out, and her mother responded that no one had come. In fact, Jessica had also falsely reported her address to the company, leaving them confused and unable to locate her. I didn't know her exact address, but I had seen her working here 6 months ago and guessed she might still be here today. And indeed, she was here. Did you recommend that apartment because your company manages it? You planned to use my funds for yourself from the start, didn't you? The unpaid rent report was just harassment, right? I asked, but Jessica remained silent. However, when her mother urged, "Tell the truth," she finally began to speak. Still, she said with envy, "Well, the cat's out of the bag now, so it can't be helped. But it's your fault, Ashley. You rejected Keith, whom I liked, and always got attention for your excellent grades. You're really annoying." Hearing these words of jealousy, even her mother was lost for words. She must have never imagined such a deep rift in her daughter's relationships. Then her mother asked with a trembling voice, "Why were you embezzling?" To which Jessica gave a shocking response. "Huh? Oh, that was because I had debts. I spent too much and it ballooned. Just when I was wondering how to pay it back, a convenient wallet came along," she answered nonchalantly. She admitted she had thought about harassing me if we ever met again and felt lucky to have this opportunity. Her mother couldn't hide her shock at her daughter's transformation, but Jessica seemed indifferent, saying, I'm your only daughter, right, Mom? If you compare me and her, it's obvious who is more important. You always take my side, right? These words only added pain to her already overwhelmed mother. Considering her mother's feelings, I couldn't help but say, I'm not here to persuade you. I came to find evidence that you need to atone for your crime. Despite the manager's suggestion to settle the issue internally as a company mistake, this whole incident stemmed from past conflicts between Jessica and I. That's why I first wanted to talk directly with Jessica and came here. But Jessica, maintaining her composure, boasted, "This is ridiculous, isn't it? There are no security cameras here, and Mom will definitely take my side. Who would believe you over me? I've played lead roles in the drama club in high school. I'll just cry and claim you're lying. Your words won't serve as evidence." However, I wasn't that naive. "What are you talking about? This conversation is being recorded. That will serve as evidence. You think I came here and prepared?" I retorted confidently. Then Jessica's expression changed. She grabbed my collar and shook me violently, saying, "What? Erase that recording right now. Don't mess with me." Not just embezzlement. Her act of violence towards a defenseless person also constitutes assault. Appalled by her accumulating crimes, I was admonishing her when her mother shouted, "Stop it." Her mother slapped Jessica's cheek hard and tearfully exclaimed, "You must atone for your mistakes." Jessica was shocked to see her usually calm mother yelling and raising her hand. As she looked back and forth between me and her mother, completely unsettled, I told her, "I'll hand this recording over to the person in charge. Is it fun to act this way because of our past conflicts and cause trouble for your mother?" I'm truly disappointed, and left the bar with those final words. As a result, her mother came out with Jessica. She tried to force Jessica to apologize and demanded apologize to Ashley. Jessica seemed to feel betrayed by her mother, whom she held dear, and did not let go of her defiant attitude. She didn't want to apologize to me. Seeing Jessica maintain this attitude till the end, I felt an indescribable sadness. You're wondering why your mom isn't taking your side, aren't you? But it's you who rejected her efforts for you and betrayed her. Not everything is someone else's fault, I said. Jessica lifted her face, awkwardly averting her gaze. Perhaps my words struck a painful chord as she appeared frustrated. Eventually, there was a final word of apology from her. Hearing that, I thanked her mother and left the place. Later, Jessica accepted her mother's persuasion and fully admitted her guilt. The company insisted, "We won't accept any out-of-court settlements before the criminal trial," and took the case to court. The amount embezzled was less than $10,000. Jessica admitted her guilt, and her mother promised to repay the embezzled amount, resulting in a suspended sentence. Afterwards, Jessica voluntarily resigned from the company. Her mother, having repaid her daughter's embezzlement, closed the shop and returned to her parental home in the countryside. I heard her reason for leaving was, "If I'm here, she'll rely on me again. It's best to leave her alone for her own independence." Jessica has lost her bond with her mother and is now alone in despair. Her job search is not going well, debts are piling up, and she sees no future ahead. I hope for her reform, for her mother's sake too. As for me, despite the company's mishandling, I found a resolution to the incident. They offered to waive my rent for a while and in return, asked me not to sue them. I'm fine with paying the rightful rent and was a bit discomforted, but not overly so. Besides, it's rare to find such a wonderful property in this region. Having rent waived for some time is a significant help. Though initially I was treated as if I hadn't paid despite doing so, now I'm receiving good treatment, so it's not too bad. Hence, with no particular reason to move, I agreed to the company's request for a settlement. On a personal note, I married the man I've been dating. He moved here and we started living together. He was on a business trip abroad, and we planned to marry upon his return. Everything went as planned. We received blessings from everyone and are enjoying a delightful married life. There have been tough times, but now I'm at the happiest point of my life. I intend to continue building such happiness in my daily life. You're troublesome and your role is over, so get out. Mom, that's exactly right. I was thinking the same. So, Allison, we are going to get a divorce. Please leave here immediately. During our married life, I was forced to live with my in-laws and even had to help with loan repayments, only to be suddenly deemed unnecessary and told about the divorce. I have even reached the limits of my patience. Sadly, I thought of putting everyone in my in-laws' family, including my husband, into a difficult situation. My name is Allison and I am 34 years old. This year marks the 6th year of my marriage with my husband, Ethan. We don't have any children yet, and to be honest, our relationship has completely cooled off. I thought marrying you would bring a more exciting life, but it was surprising. Well, you can spend your life working here as a maid. Don't act too big. About half a year into our marriage, my husband started calling me you, and I can't even remember the last time he called me honey. I wonder why I married such a heartless man. Sometimes I reflect on the past, but the details of those memories have become blurred. However, my husband was much warmer, more compassionate, and trustworthy than he is now. Because I grew up in a poor family, I strongly wish to avoid economic hardships when getting married. For this reason, I completely ruled out men who liked gambling as potential marriage partners. Even after entering society following high school, I carried the habits of my poor days. When buying something, I would overthink and be cautious. Ethan saw my cautious behavior as practical and economical, which might have been a big factor in his decision to marry me. How much savings do you have, Allison? You don't seem interested in luxury or fashion. Actually, I'm similar to you. Our personalities match, and our financial values seem to align, Ethan would often say to me. For me, who desperately wanted to avoid a poor life, having a husband with matching financial values was truly a blessing. It further deepened our bond. Married life is built on mutual understanding and support. We pride ourselves on understanding each other concerning money. The days spent with Ethan were fulfilling due to less financial worries. But on reflection, commenting on someone else's savings is a breach of etiquette, and casually stating a lack of interest in fashion is unacceptable. As a woman, being indifferent to fashion is unimaginable. My savings, well, I'm not sure about the exact amount, but I definitely try to save most of my monthly salary. Oh, and I am very interested in fashion. I always skillfully avoided financial questions to prevent further prying. We got engaged within a year of dating, but after we got married, Ethan's behavior gradually began to change. The unexpected suggestion of living with his parents came just after we got married. When Ethan returned from work, he started with excitement. I have something to discuss with you, Allison. Don't be shocked. His expression at that time gave me an ominous feeling. The topic he brought up was beyond my worst expectations. Ethan suggested that we start living with his parents during our newlywed period. It was a shocking proposition for me and had a significant impact on our relationship. This suggestion was far from what I had hoped for before marriage. I had dreamed of building our small world through our married life, but this proposal shattered that dream. For me, life with Ethan was supposed to be about just the two of us, without the intervention of others. Accepting this proposition was far from my ideal, marking a major crossroads in my relationship with Ethan. Ethan's unexpected suggestion became a significant trial for us as a couple and greatly influenced my values and expectations. It was a painful reminder that unexpected challenges can arise in married life. After discussing with my mom, I decided we should live with her. She gets lonely without me, and our apartment lease is ending soon, so I decided we should move, he announced. My opinion was completely ignored, and it seemed he and his mother had already made many decisions. Wait, isn't that too sudden? Your family home is quite far from my workplace. I really wanted to avoid living together, so I raised an objection, but I was firmly told that it had already been decided. He was always saying, "Mom, Mom," which was off-putting enough. But what he said next was even more shocking. The house is too small and inconvenient for 4 people to live in, especially since my sister often visits. That's why I'm taking out a loan to renovate the house, Ethan said. This decision, too, was made without consulting me, and he had taken out a loan on his own. Can it be true? Is he serious? Before I could hear the whole story, I was speechless. How am I going to deal with this self-centered man from now on? That question crossed my mind. Life in my in-laws' home, and the frequent appearances of my sister-in-law. After a series of unbelievable stories, my husband made an even more shocking statement. That's why I want you to quit your current job. From now on, you must take care of my parents, not live just as my wife. If you still want to work, I'll allow you to do some work from home, he said. The development of the conversation was too sudden and one-sided, and it took time for me to accept and understand the situation. What? Why are you being so unreasonable? You're not considering my feelings at all. What? Why do I have to consider your feelings? I'm the head of the family, so I make all the decisions, he argued back. I had been working on plans for years, and now I'm being asked to give them up and become a full-time housewife. Gradually, I began to see the essence of what my husband was trying to say. I never imagined that I would end up in this situation within a year of marriage. Originally, I wanted to rebel against what I saw as a breach of promise, but I lacked the courage and didn't want to burden my parents. In the end, I had no choice but to comply. All right, I'll quit my job and live with you. But if there are any mother-in-law issues, please listen to me. That's all I ask. Yeah, don't worry. Listening is easy. After all, I'm on your side. I was serious, but it seemed that my husband was taking it lightly. And as expected, as soon as we started living together, conflicts between me and my mother-in-law began. The renovated house was larger than expected, and private space was secured, but I became busy with daily chores. I was still working right after the move. But my mother-in-law, uninterested in my work situation, said, "Hey, when are you going to quit your job and focus on housework? The house won't be in order if you keep this up." Every day, I faced one-sided criticism upon returning home exhausted. Initially, my husband had promised to support me with mother-in-law issues, but in reality, he never stood up for me, and eventually, he and his mother started blaming me together. You know, have you ever considered my mother's age? It's unreasonable to push housework onto her. I somehow ended up being the bad person just because I asked them to manage their own affairs. My father-in-law was present but barely noticeable, trying to escape the household troubles. "Excuse me, father. May I have a word?" Even when I tried to talk to him, he said, "No, don't talk to me. If she sees me talking to you, I don't know what my wife will say." It was just a simple question about the location of the circuit breaker. It's troubling that even such trivial conversation is not possible. 2 weeks after moving in, my husband and his mother started threatening me. "When are you quitting your job? If you don't, we'll contact your company." And a week after that talk, my resignation was decided. Despite resigning under pressure from my mother-in-law and husband, there were no words of gratitude from them. What followed were days of being made to work at home. "And since you quit your job and our income has decreased, don't just rely on me, but think of ways to earn money through home-based work," I was told. I realized I was being demanded to not be lazy and handle everything. I lost the energy to even argue in surprise. There was hardly any conversation between my husband and I had essentially become like a dedicated housemaid for his family. During this time, my husband's sister, Mary, often visited and confronted me, saying, "Hey, you're not leaving Ethan to pay off the house loan all by himself, are you? If you're living here, you should contribute to the repayments too." The renovation probably costed nearly $500,000. Why should I bear such responsibility? It felt unfair. Being held accountable just for living together seemed unreasonable to me. Forcing cohabitation from the start, pushing through a renovation, making me quit my job, and then demanding payments for the loan. This situation was abnormal from any angle. Normally, this wouldn't happen. I clearly felt that I married the wrong person. That night, my husband said with a smile, as my sister mentioned about the house loan repayment, "From now on, we're all going to share the burden. Actually, I think it's only natural for you, the wife, to pay." Seeing his attitude, I was just appalled. At that moment, I felt that continuing to live with my husband was impossible. I thought this situation would not only affect me negatively but also my in-laws' family. However, I hesitated to suggest divorce immediately. The main reason was to avoid worrying my parents. My mother was unwell, often needing hospital care, and my father was tired from caring for her. Bringing up my divorce issues might shock them greatly. Therefore, I couldn't make such a selfish choice. So, I decided to tackle the problems at hand first. I followed my husband's and in-law family's instructions, earning income through home-based work while actively contributing to the loan repayment. I frequently discussed with my husband about changing the loan process and accelerating the repayment plan, asking for his cooperation. Perhaps because I was devoted to repaying the loan, my husband said, "It's really good you've started acting like a proper wife of this house. If you were still arrogant, I would have considered divorce." Despite my contributing a large amount, the situation remained unfair. However, I decided to endure until things settled down. Before I knew it, I had turned 34 and it had been 6 years since my marriage. Thinking about the meaning of marriage made me sad, so I tried to stay as positive as possible. Sometimes, seeing old friends on social media posting happy family vacation photos with their children made me envious. I had wanted a happy married life and to have children too. But considering my situation then, those wishes seemed empty. However, recently, my mother-in-law had been less complaining about my behavior, saying, "The housemaid of the house finally became a decent person. She used to be an incomprehensible daughter-in-law, but it's good she's somewhat educated," while laughing with my sister-in-law. Home-based work turned out to be a good fit for me, and I had earned a considerable amount over the past few years, which I hadn't told my husband. Surprisingly, I managed to pay off the $500,000 loan in just a few years. Normally, it would take 35 years to pay off, so I was expecting to be thanked for repaying it before we turned 60. That night, I told my husband I had something important to discuss. Just about the house loan. Actually, it's already paid off. I have something serious to discuss with you today. In fact, I had prepared a divorce paper for this day and had been steadily preparing to leave the house. When I mentioned that the loan was paid off, my mother-in-law appeared, saying, "What? It's already paid off?" She barged into the conversation, listening keenly. "Yes, that's right. I was intending to have a serious talk with Ethan today, and at the moment I was about to talk about divorce, my mother-in-law approached me with a smile I had never seen before. There's nothing to worry about anymore. Unnecessary beings are no longer needed. From now on, we can start a new life with only the true family members, right?" She said. "Mom, that's right. I think the same. So Allison, we're getting a divorce. I want you to leave here quickly." My husband declared the divorce, even though I hadn't said anything yet. Despite being forced to live in the in-laws' house since marriage and even getting involved in repaying the household loan, I was suddenly kicked out from the house. I never imagined that my husband would bring up divorce before I could. Moreover, my mother-in-law called a locksmith right in front of me. "Can you change the locks as soon as possible? Please, as quickly as you can." I was just dumbfounded by this series of events. I had endured life in the in-laws' house and the relationship with my husband. But at that moment, I resolved to seek revenge against my husband and his family. My patience had finally reached its limit, and a flame of retribution ignited in my heart. Soon after, a locksmith arrived and began changing the house's locks. During this, my mother-in-law and husband looked at me smirking. "That settles it. Today you're leaving this house. From now on, it's just our happy family." "Yes, Allison, you've done well to endure this far. But this is the end. Don't expect any compensation or division of property. We haven't caused any problems, continued my mother-in-law. Realizing there would be no division of property, I thought to myself, is this really okay? I never imagined it would come to this. While taking out the prepared divorce papers, then I created a document stating that there would be no compensation or division of property and had my husband sign it immediately. My husband signed the divorce papers with satisfaction, under the watchful eye of his mother. Meanwhile, my father-in-law quietly observed the scene from a corner of the room. The realization that my departure from them was becoming a reality gave me an immense sense of relief. I quickly packed my belongings and left the house with the signed documents. I heard cheers and applause from inside the house, but I felt like sending them the same sentiment, as the situation was about to change drastically. Upon leaving the house, I immediately rushed to the municipal office to submit the divorce papers. Then, I headed straight to the real estate agency. In fact, I had already visited the real estate agent several times and had started the procedures there. Mr. Cohen, my agent and an expert in this field, fully understood my plan and acted swiftly. About a week after leaving the house, I received the expected call from my ex-husband and his family. Allison, what are you doing? We received a notice to leave the house within a week. Is this your doing? Unbelievable. How could you? My ex-husband exclaimed in rage. Mr. Cohen was very efficient in completing the procedures quickly and finding a new owner for the house. Yes, about that. I was the one who contacted the real estate agent. After all, I paid off the loan for that house, and the title was transferred to me midway. You haven't forgotten, have you? I responded. It seemed my ex-husband had forgotten everything. He had only been focused on getting my help with the loan repayment from the start, and he had followed my instructions for the other procedures and changes, but he had overlooked the details. However, it was his own responsibility for not verifying. Trying to put that responsibility on me is unreasonable. In fact, I was the one who paid the enormous amount of $500,000. Plus, I never received any living expenses from you. Your parents, even when they received their pension, said, "We'll spend our own money," and didn't contribute a single penny to the household. The reason for that is, my ex-husband tried to make an excuse, but in the end, it was I who had been supporting this family for years. After I was told to earn income through home-based work, I did so thoroughly despite the constant dissatisfaction that made my stomach ache. Despite my continued support in repaying the loan, I received not a word of gratitude and was kicked out from the house that eventually had its locks changed. I couldn't just stay silent in this situation. Wait, listen to me. Let's talk again. I think we can understand each other. We are a family, right? Besides, I don't have anywhere to go after leaving this house. You understand that, right? My ex-husband appealed in a tearful voice, but I had no intention of being swayed by such feeble words at this point. Where to go? What about your sister's house? Why don't you all live with Mary? It's a family matter, after all, I suggested coldly. Then, my mother-in-law took the phone and furiously said, "How spiteful can you be? Living at Mary's is impossible. She's having a hard time with her divorce. I can't imagine burdening my daughter with this." I retaliated against her words. Is that so? It's fine to inconvenience a stranger even though she's your beloved son's wife. I see. I understand you're thinking well now. That's why I dislike you even more. There's no way I'll help. What are you saying? My mother-in-law shouted in rage. Her anger was palpable through the phone, with her furious voice making me want to cover my ears. I felt lighter having conveyed everything I wanted to say. Well, please leave the house immediately. You might have financial issues, but if you're a close-knit family, you'll manage by helping each other. Goodbye. I said calmly. Wait, this is no time for jokes. My mother-in-law screamed, but I calmly hung up the phone. At that crucial moment, my ex-husband just hid behind his mother and said nothing. His true character was revealed. He talked tough on the surface, but at critical moments, he backed down. I had chosen the wrong man. 3 days later, Mr. Cohen, my agent, informed me that my ex-family had stealthily moved out at night. Without a decided destination, they ultimately went to my father-in-law's rural hometown. Without savings and nowhere else to go, the countryside was their only option. Their economic hardships will continue, and they'll never again live in a beautiful single-family home. They should look back and remember the comfort of those times. I am relieved there was no division of property. After all, someone capable of repaying $500,000 in 5 years might have various plans, right? I was fortunate that my ex-husband was short-sighted. I planned to buy a new apartment with a fresh mindset and regain a comfortable life.